Okay, cool to have you here, guys. Stellar panel, I would say. And quite an interesting topic, I would say, as well. Let's start with some of the general questions and maybe like a short introductions because they were only given the names and the company names. So maybe you can tell like a few words each about yourself, about the company, and one fun fact about the company. Whoever wants to start.
Sure. Hi, my name is Herman. I am the CEO of Improbable, but also author of a book called Virtual Society about many of these topics. Our company is probably best known for building the Somnia blockchain, which is a million DPS EVM compatible blockchain. But we've also worked on building some of the largest virtual events on Earth. We hold the Guinness World Record for the most number of people in a virtual world. We've worked with Major League Baseball, Yuga Labs, and many others.
Cool. Aaron?
Yeah, my name is Aaron. I'm the Apex CEO of Pudgy Penguins. And yeah, I think the fun fact is that we're in a character IP born out of crypto 4 years ago. Today, we have almost 1 billion views per day on average on social media. And, basically everything in Asia Pacific, which is, by the way, the home of QIP, right? QIP flourish in Asia. This is what we're going to do. We're in the business of licensing our IP, building communities, hosting events, and also working with great partners like Mythical Games to do insane products.
Cool.
Should I go? So my name is John Linden, CEO of Mythical Games. Been in the game industry for a long time, came from the traditional game space, made a game called Call of Duty for many years, had a mobile company, sold that, and been in Web3 since 2018 now, so we've been around for a while. We build basically a tradable economy tech for mainstream games. So big games we have, NFL Rivals, about 8 million players in that. We're working with Pudgy on a very exciting new game that's coming out in a couple months. And we just, I guess the fun fact, we just launched FIFA Rivals 7 days ago, and we're on track for 1 million new wallets in the first month alone. So we're very excited on where this is going and what can come out of the Web3 economies and mainstream games. So.
Cool.
I'm Garen. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Public Masterpiece. We are actually tokenizing masterpieces on the blockchain. We bring in real-world assets, not only as a tokenized NFT, but we actually have a marketplace where we send the masterpieces to your house. And with our platform, you can actually enjoy maybe a nice art piece while getting yield, a return of investment daily. And this is what we are working on. We have tokenized over $10 million worth of assets so far. We launched last year, but been building since 2018.
Cool. I hope we all learned from this gentleman. So you all four represent companies with a big impact on RWAs, art, gaming, metaverses, even plush toys. I mean, if toys and NFTs and metaverses can generate alone millions of dollars in revenue, I think it's coming a good way. What do you think if we are going to, and it's a bit of a general question, if we're going to tokenize culture like at all, outside of the gaming, toys, anything? I mean, because we just need to give people some understanding on everything that's happening in our RWAs, because it's been a very hot topic 2024, 2025 in DeFi world, and it's growing. Aaron, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the promise of crypto is ownership, right? So I think if you look at big legacy IP brands like Disney, like Pokemon, they make billions of dollars revenue per year, but you don't really own those revenue. You don't really own those data as well. And in fact, if you look at their community, their fandom, they create content, they create memes, they cosplay, for anime projects. But all this value doesn't accrue back to the customer, to the user. So I think the promise of crypto, and especially Pudgy Penguin, we started as an NFT project. People mint the NFT to collect, but for the last 4 years, what happens is that the community actually create a layer of engagement on top of collecting, right? They host event, they host meetup, they introduce people to us, right? They build their own merchandises using the IP, and while they are doing it, they are actually enriching the network of the NFT, and also now we have a token as well. Right, I think the enterprise value of the whole network crypto increased over time, and we have like platforms like overpriced IP that people can submit their IP to the platform, and that can be licensed out to big players as well, like Pudgy Party as well. So I think these are things that I don't think Web2 IP players are able to pull off, and it's only totally possible in crypto.
Okay. Okay. What
I mean,
do you think,
I would
guys?
say that I think simply making a token to represent a thing is certainly valuable from a capital markets perspective, but maybe the least valuable thing we can do with IP and crypto. I think where it gets a lot more exciting is when we have the technology, which we do now with modern chains, to put so much more of the meaning, the functionality, the purpose of IP on chain. You know, to actually see a Marvel Universe style ecosystem or Warhammer style ecosystem emerge from the compositional behavior of 1 million storytellers, all being rewarded, all contributing, all composing, that is really, really powerful and really interesting. I mean, at the end of the day, if whatever this is not creating more valuable IP than would be created without it, it's useless. So what we really need to see is more of a set of protocols, rules, languages, tools, and innovation around going beyond just a token to some things that actually create history on chain. You know, we've already begun to see some of that on our ecosystem. There's an NFT collection called Quills that, you know, they started off as just an NFT collection, but very quickly, you know, they started to become its own like historical narrative with games and things spinning out of it. A little bit like Pudgy has gone in the direction of toys, but that's, I think, the future.
John,
Yeah, so yeah, kind of happy to add on a little bit again from the gaming perspective, but I think what's really interesting about gaming is that the gaming industry is now, you know, just under 4 billion people, which is, if you do the math on that, it's roughly half of the world. So every other person is basically playing games now, almost on a monthly basis. So it's an enormous amount of time being spent in virtual worlds. And I think what's really exciting about it is that any asset in these worlds that is either time-based or quantity-based has natural inherent value to a consumer. You know, if it's limited, hey, there's only 5,000 of these and you'll never get it again, like a Pudgy type thing, or if it's, hey, this is only available this week, this day, this hour, this month, whatever it is, and then no longer available, there's a lot of value. In fact, if you take a big game, a non-Web3 game like a Fortnite, right? People buy, Fortnite's free, it's a free account. People buy Fortnite accounts on eBay in the US. Why the hell would you buy a free Fortnite account on eBay? Well, it's because I joined season 4, and season 2, they had a DJ Marshmallow skin, and I really want it, right? There's value to me in that, so I'm willing to pay money for a free account. Now, what I think Web3 does is that really opens that up, so you're not only now safely and securely trading with other people, it's actually part of the kind of economics and gameplay. And then on top of that, you just have all this opportunity around things like creator economies, right? I think it becomes a brand new business development layer, a layer of how people can interact between brands and items and players and gameplay itself. So,
I think Garen can relate to that because
Yes,
he's dealing with art.
yeah.
I would like to bring maybe another view on this from the arts perspective. We are all Web3 builders, we're problem solvers. So I was 15 years ago in Egypt. I met with the Minister of Culture, and I asked him, like, what are the biggest hurdles, problems you have? He's like, forgery and illegal trafficking of cultural goods. Yep. So at that time, we didn't have the answer yet, like as problem solvers in tech. We move very fast in the tech industry. It's like, somehow I feel it's our responsibility for human beings to preserve cultural goods and our history, and we have the technology that we're working on. So with that problem in mind, now fast forward to today, we have created a framework to preserve artifacts and give the ownership back to the people in the countries where they have their certificates. So if a museum wants to have that certain artifact, whatever it is, they need to actually get it from the government itself. It pushes the GDP, it gives value back to the people, as well as you can now create collectibles, official collectibles, and not souvenirs that you buy maybe next to the Giza pyramid, which hold value because the Minister of Culture or the President signed it. So we're creating, I believe, a new form of economy while preserving also for future generations all these goods and history and culture.
Okay, so speaking of value, what a Web3 native IP, what kind of value does it bring, on-chain value brings to the market or to your project?
So when we use the word native to Web3, then I think there are some important decisions that are implied by that. The first is that there probably isn't a director or creator or singular visionary behind the IP, or at least long-term, the decisions by the IP are in some way made by people. So it must have some method for that to occur, and that creates value. Because when people can make choices that affect their favorite world, they're bought into it, they care about it, they will spend more money, they will be more engaged. You see this a lot with worlds like Second Life, which is still really popular, where they're almost entirely driven by UGC. I think the second point here really is composition. So how can I add or connect two seemingly unrelated or two separated assets or pieces to build a shared experience? This is, I think, where the gaming analogy falls down a little bit, because games are designed not to do that. They're incredibly closed ecosystems. Like you couldn't take a machine gun from Call of Duty and put that inside Harry Potter. I mean, you could, but that's going to be a very, very unusual game for everybody involved.
No creative director would let that happen.
No, exactly, right? So I mean, Dumbledore getting machine gunned is not the point. But the idea here is like, you kind of have to build entirely new sorts of IP which work for this. So Lego is a great example of an IP which fits with other IPs, right? You can imagine Lego things plugging together. So yeah, I think it's exciting, but it also poses challenges, which is why it hasn't happened, overnight.
Okay.
I think I'll go next.
Yeah. I think Aaron should definitely take this one on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's all about economic alignment, right? I think when you mint an NFT or you own any Web3 IP gaming asset, you are aligned with the rest of us, right? The rest of the people that's participating in the same network. In fact, in Pudgy Penguins community, we always double down on this. Like, community is the heart of everything we do, right? Our loyalty starts at the end of the community. So even right now, 4 years later, every 2 weeks, we have a town hall meeting in Discord, right? Where Luca will just answer questions to the holders and build together with them, right? So in fact, a lot of things that we do is all ideas generated from the community, right? It's like, I know someone who work for Disney, please talk to them. Or I know a product idea that would be popular in Asia, please manufacture that. So I think this is very uniquely Web3, is that everyone is incentivized to grow the IP together, right? It's just like what you said, right? Basically, there's no one person dominating the orchestrating everything, right? Exactly. It's really built with the community. And I think this is really the value of Web3 native IP. It's that we can remix the IP in a way that is personalized to the situation that we're in, the country that we are in. And that's how we grow. And look at Bitcoin and ETH, right? These are all people-powered movement and network. And I think hopefully Pudgy Penguins could be that golden standard for when it comes to Web3 IP network as well.
So what does on-chain IP unlock for you guys then?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say, besides the Pudgy is obviously a very native Web3. I think that's one of the few that really fall into that like really strong category right now. But I think if I can take the question slightly different of kind of what can we do with the Web3 with IPs, I think that's the really interesting part. You kind of mentioned, Herman mentioned, the talk has been forever, and I get it all the time, being from one of the big Web2 games. When can I take my Call of Duty gun and put it into Borderlands? Probably never, because creative directors will have problems with that. There's production issues. If you actually take one asset out of one game and put it directly into another game, it's not even going to look like the same item you think it's going to look like. There's so much tech that goes into these worlds. But AI could help solve some of the production things over time. What we have seen that I think is really, really interesting, and I won't give up too much yet because my partners will kill me, but you could imagine, we have 2 games right now. We have an NFL game, so American football, and then we have FIFA, regular football, right? And what you will see right now, and there's already some announcements happening, there's actually teams that are kind of creating these alliances. There's one, I don't know if it's been announced, so I gotta be careful saying it, but I know there's one NFL team and one German football team that have announced they have like this alliance between their 2 worlds. And you can imagine if you had a game in both, you could suddenly be like, hey, if you own something here, it does something interesting in the other game, right? We did have a first game called Blankos, and we did the same thing. Like, we have a very, very passionate Blankos community. Now, we're repurposing that game into a mobile game right now, but what we're doing with them is we created what we call the Blankos OGs, right? And similar to like Pudgy does a great job of this as well. And basically, in FIFA now, they're going to be getting this special goal celebration that is, it's FIFA IP, but it's kind of tied back to what was really, really popular in that other game. And the fact that it is all Web3 and we can move that across very easily, that becomes very, very powerful. And we're doing similar things with Pudgy in terms of like, how does their original kind of, their OGs, right, the people that own Pudgies, how do they basically have benefits within these games? So to me, I don't view it necessarily as much as a Web3 native IP, but what Web3 can do to any IP, really, and how the power that unlocks over time.
But if we're speaking about art, Garen,
yes, art,
what do you think?
Not only art, I would add something else. I mean, originally I come from events, marketing, and music. I own music IPs. I was part of the digitalization process from CDs to downloads with Apple, building that up, the distribution online in Europe. So my first hands-on network is the music industry. Yeah. And I just heard like great examples where Web3 is helping, and Web3 could also help in the music industry. It's also type form of art. The problem which I see today is regulations, rights. So in the music, you have publishing rights, you have distribution rights, you have label and management and all of that, which is still not clear in our world how we going to handle this. I mean, we have the solution. We could put it down in a smart contract and for each sale, get a seamless payout and all of that. But getting that actually transferred to all the big players which are ruling the industry is a little bit difficult. That's why I see, for instance, in music, there's difficulties connecting music projects with Web3. Most of them are independent, so they don't get the reach. We don't have a Justin Bieber or Michael Jackson yet, the IPs in Web3. Yeah. But then moving to art, that's why art for me is just like a very old traditional trading market. The assets are there, they hold value by itself. There is politics behind how art gets valuated. So for me, it was like, okay, it's time to revolutionize the art industry and open it up to a brighter audience as well, but not to make it more difficult, because we have enough difficulties in our lives. We need to make things very simple. I believe that for us, Web3 means simplicity. We need to make it simple. Like, people using Web3 shouldn't know they're using Web3 until they're really interested to know the technology behind. So coming from let's say from a psychological consumer angle, it is also our part, like in the gaming, transferring that IP. They don't know how the IP rights work and all of that. We have consumers and they wanted to have it as easy as possible, and we build it up now for the arts industry that way. So IPs can be transferred, can be leased, can be sold. You have all these abilities that are beautiful opening up in the industry right now, and which create definitely more value, than sitting just in the Louvre. You have millions, if not billions, worth of art sitting there, and they just sleep there. It's the same thing if I had the NFT sleeping in my wallet and it's not creating any yield. This is what we're opening up. We're opening up liquidity. We're helping them to actually monetize their assets that are sleeping, basically.
Amazing, amazing. One thing that you mentioned, and actually the question to all of you, and I think that for John is going to be the easiest because you're tapping into gaming, which is probably one of the biggest sectors of all the represented here. What's the hardest part of making the IP liquid?
Sorry, well, I didn't hear the last part of that.
Of making the IP liquid now.
Liquid.
Yeah.
So when you say liquid, you mean as in to create a tradable market for that? I would actually say in some ways that question is emblematic of the problem we face in this space, right? Which is, no knock on you, but it's like the first question shouldn't be how do we make the IP liquid? It should be how do we make the IP valuable enough that it would actually be worth trading it? And I think the issue in this space is because one of the best things about Web3 is your most instant idea can be IPO'd in some ways with a token. It heavily disincentivizes people to actually make anything useful or valuable or to be accountable to their communities. So I would say it takes a depth of community obsession with something before those questions of liquidity kind of make sense. But probably the biggest technical challenge is the fragmentation of block space. I didn't want to build a blockchain with Somnia. The only reason we went around to do that as a deep tech company is because so many of the things we're talking about here just do not work when you have 500 blockchains or ridiculously expensive fees. For example, with your music area, if you're streaming, micro-cent royalties, if the cost of the transaction is $2, then that isn't going to work. So I think there are technical challenges, but I think the biggest impediment is the development of that depth of community. Pudgy is a great example where I think they have a shot at it, but there are very few others, user labs maybe, that could get there.
John?
I think kind of 2 points on this. One, this is where I think Web3 gets it wrong sometimes, at least in consumer markets, is that everything is about profit, 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 yield, yield, yield. To be really honest, most consumers don't care. They really don't. And in fact, what happens in our worlds right now is that there's a whole new phenomenon coming around, right? It's more about digital identity than it is about profit, right? In gaming, at least. And what I mean by that is, like, if we have items in our game that you can only earn, right? We call them mythical tiered. Mythical tiered we don't really sell. It's just something that you have to earn, and the only way to get them is you either earn it directly or you buy it from somebody that earned it, right? Those are the only two ways to get these assets. And some of these assets, they go for $1,000. We're not quite Pudgy levels, and we're not trying to necessarily be a different kind of asset class. But some of them naturally will go for $1,000. And what we'll see is that we don't see everyone that owns one rushing out to try and sell it and make a profit. What we do see, though, is we see people talking about their identity. My collection just went up by $1,000. It becomes part of their digital identity. And I think in the world where we're heading right now, I have 2 daughters, and their Spotify playlist, which they don't own anything, is as much about their identity as, we used to, I'm going to date myself a little bit here, but like CD or cassette tape collections, right? That was our identity with a physical item. They do that now digitally. And I think that is a really important part of Web3, this is what the community has valued this asset at. That's part of who I am, and that's what I have. It's not about I can go make $500 right this second by selling the asset I want, because I think in gaming a lot of times there's utility. Like, if I sell it, I don't have it anymore. And 2, there's this mentality of like, this is part of who I am, right? Now, there is a lot of people that sell or they trade or whatever, and that's exciting. But so I think that's a big part of it. The other one you kind of nailed too, I think, which I love. I love what you said about around being liquid. Like, a lot of consumers shouldn't have to even know that they're on Web3. And it's funny, actually, being in the Web3 space, we get shit on that all the time publicly. People will be like, yeah, your users don't count. They're not real Web3 users because they don't know that they're transacting in Web3. Well, I don't know who's actually pulled out a credit card recently, and when you charge it, you know exactly what payment processor routes it went through to go from your bank to the merchant. I don't think anybody cares at the end of the day. At the end of the day, I swiped the credit card and money ended up and I got what I wanted. And I really do think that's where Web3 goes, right? And I think, so I actually love the way we're doing it. I love that people just come in and start playing and they have a wallet and they're receiving stuff. And then they're like, oh, I can sell this? That's kind of cool. I'm going to go find out about that. But it's interesting. I think this is kind of a narrative for the industry too. We have to be very careful on it. This whole thing is like, we actually had an exchange partner say, oh, so FIFA, you're going to bring in another 100 million Web2 users? They're not Web3 users. And I'm like, where do you think Web3 users come from? They're not just born, Like, they actually come from consumers understanding the value. So I think we have a little bit of some liquidity and stuff like that too, of like, we have to embrace that we just need, most of the world's population to be able to transact on some chain, some way. That's when we start moving this into a truly liquid asset, I think. But anyway, those are kind of 2 points I think we've seen, is digital identity is as important as profit and yield, and at least in gaming. And we should definitely, I love what you said there too, is like, we believe that very much, is just come in and transact.
I can underline what you're saying 100%. For us, the value we bring is as well, when we speak about real world assets, we still need to somehow work in the real world. Mm-hmm. So for us, building this up, the most important thing was to build a true community. Someone that appreciates not the technology, but what we are offering. So that's what John was referring to. You need to have an emotional connection to it, regardless if you're playing a game or it needs to like resonate with your identity. And that's the first step to get people like excited about what we're doing, because then they're passionate about. It's not about, as you said, about the money in the first place. So this is how we build our community. Our community, 90% of people, and some of them are even here, came all the way from around the world. We have a very elite club, which we take everywhere we go, is we want them to know what we're doing. We want them to be part of these discussions because they're the people that take it to their families, to their friends, you know. We want to bring more people on chain, and over 90% of our project investors, holders, owners of art pieces have never been in touch with crypto before. Yeah. And we're not going out to promote what we're doing in the Web3 space because we want people to onboard on Web3 from Web2. And this is what brings in my opinion, the value to what asset we put on the blockchain on the table, and creates multiplication, you know, through every single person that gets excited being part of a project. Because once you understand, then okay, John is doing then the games, and they're also using this technology in the background, and then you get interested, you start reading about it, and I believe we're still in very early stages, and our responsibility is education. Yeah. So what we do is we have weekly calls, you know, where we invite all of the people, we communicate a lot, we spend a lot of energy, time into it, we explain how to build wallets, and now, which we can announce exclusively today as well, next month we will have our own public masterpiece app launch, which has nothing in the front end to do, again, with Web3. You sign up, you can buy with Apple Pay, Google Pay, you can buy your art, you can buy the tokens, you can stake, we have a DAO, you can decide which artist or artwork we take, we drop as next masterpiece, and getting actually the community as a voice, you know, in the direction to where we're going, and listening to them what they want, you know. I think that's very important of what we're doing and in terms of bringing value on chain.
Thank you. I believe we're running out of time. One more question, and actually something that John mentioned, and we've discussed it with you, Garen, yesterday, the fractionalization. Will you fractionalize the most successful IP on your products?
So the biggest tokenized asset right now from real world is treasuries, right? Which are highly regular. Property, I think, is second to that. IP just doesn't look like that. You know, all IP is really, really different. It's difficult to articulate to a consumer what owning like a fractional percentage of an abstract thing is or means. And I think, therefore, that while some aspects of IP assets might be very suitable for that, I'm not entirely sold on it. You know, there has been a number of companies that have tried, for example, to tokenize a share of music streaming revenue. But these absolute numbers are so tiny. Like, you know, most artists, you know, for I think 1 billion streams, you don't even earn that much. Like, it's a couple million. You know, the fractionalization doesn't really work. So I think fractionalization is a tool in the toolbox. But these financial decisions are increasingly becoming creative decisions about how the community works together and fits together. And I don't think copy and pasting can really work, right? You know, IP is so weird in that it is what makes it different from other IP that makes it valuable, right? So the more you start to homogenize it, the more useless it becomes.
Yeah. Actually, I do want to add on, right? I think there's a lot of conversation about the financial side of IP or Web3 IP, but I totally agree with two of them is that, like, I think in Pudgy's world, for the last 4 years, I rarely see anyone talk about floor price, about the financial side of things. In fact, look at my headshot. I use a penguin as my headshot. You know, I'm basically risking my identity with this penguin. And not just me, right? If you look at some of the top builders in the network or in the holders base, everyone, like for example, the founder of Layer Zero, he rock a Pudgy Penguins NFT, right? The founder of Nansen AI, he rock a Pudgy Penguin NFT. So even sometimes the price drop 50%, they still not changing their profile picture. So I think, you know, I think when it comes to IP and gaming, people just want to express their identity, right, by owning some of this asset. It's not really about liquidity. It's not really much about, you know, all this fancy DeFi stuff. In fact, you know, we took this experiment to our own layer 2, right? We have this layer 2 chain called Abstract. You know, when every other chain focus on TVL, we don't focus on TVL. In fact, our TVL, like, is less than $100 million. today. But we have one of the highest velocity of money. People actually spending money doing stuff in the chain, right? Maybe it's only $100, $200, but we are building this consumer base that is growing. Some of the, I think, YGG, huge in Web3 gaming last cycle, they built a game on Abstract and they already have 200,000 users on the first month, right? And they are generating 5 figures of revenue per day. So I think, we are measuring the wrong thing. And then as an industry, especially when it comes to Web3 IP and also gaming, we should measuring like what they all say, right? Community, right? How lovable the IP is. Distribution, I think distribution is super underrated. Pudgy Penguin's success is really boils down to distribution, right? When during the first cycle, every NFT project trying to launch the next collection, right? Trying to get more liquidity from people. But for us, how do we create animation reels in Instagram, in TikTok, in YouTube, in Facebook, right? That create confidence to the retail market, saying, oh, Pudgy is in it for the long term. So if you look at Hello Kitty, I think Hello Kitty all-time sales is like $80 billion. Now, we haven't hit $1 billion revenue as IP, right? So we are so early, actually. So I think, as long that the community knows that you're building for the long term, they will not think about the short-term gains. They will just want to root for us, build with us, and they know that they will own part of the upside if we succeed, right? Because they own the asset
Correct.
that we are pushing as well.
John?
Yeah, I think we think it a little bit different in terms of like we don't have one Messi in the game, right? We have a limited number that's really created by the community. And I think what we have kind of taken a little bit step further. Before we just do, with NFL, we do, hey, there's only going to be 200 of these. And the problem with 200, like an idea of, hey, there's only 200, it really depends on, well, what's the denominator, right? That kind of creates the value, right? If there's 200 out of 300 players, not super rare. If you have 200 out of 20 million, a lot more difficult. What's actually interesting in gaming is if you make something absolutely too rare, you actually lose a lot of people in gaming. My former creative partner on Call of Duty, he played a game called Hearthstone, and they had these things called card backs. They weren't for sale, but there was one, he was a religious player of this game until there was one that gave out at a conference that he was not at, and he had no way to attain it, and he actually quit the game completely. And there's a lot of that. There's concepts of completionists in our world, right? So you have to be almost a little careful it's not too rare, because you can also have problems balancing an economy of 20, 30, 50 million people. So I think what we have done, which has been really interesting with FIFA so far, is that we have broken these, what are always the highest value assets, we've broken them into 5 fragments. But the fragments, some of them can be earned, some of them have to be earned in events. And really what happens is whoever gets all 5, they can then mint that item, right? So if I'm getting all 5, there is kind of a little bit of a race. I want to be the first Messi, I want to be the second Messi, I want to be the third or whatever. But what's also interesting is you can actually burn them, right? So you could actually be like, and we really let it be up to the community, right? If I have 6 of them, I could burn 5 of them. If there's only 8, now I have 1 of 3, right? I mean, you can kind of do that. Do I want to be 6 of 8 or do I want to be 1 of 3, right? Yeah. And you really give that power back to the community. So again, we're not necessarily splitting one asset, but we're just turning the keys over to the community and let them decide what they want to do. And it makes for interesting, like I said, part of that digital identity, which is so important in our games. It really makes for a really interesting opportunity and to me, I think that's still the basis of what Web3 is about, right? Turning over the controls as best you can and let the community kind of make up some of their own rules. And I think it's very, very powerful on where we can go. But I want to hear your side. You actually are tied back to one asset, right? So
yes. So fractionalizing. I mean, we act like fractionalizing is something new. We're fractionalizing everything, like from companies to music, IP rights before Web3. So I believe fractionalizing in Web3 is an innovative approach, and it's another problem-solving vehicle. For us, we want people to actually own physical art, obviously, and I will agree with you saying that, yeah, there is a certain audience that wants to invest, and they appreciate also art, but they can't afford maybe millions dollars of worth of a masterpiece. So we have currently one golden silk piece from the Kingdom of Cambodia, which took almost 10 years to make, very traditional way, amazing artist. And it's the first tokenized piece that is in the Museum of Jacques Chirac in Paris, which is a huge success for us coming from the Web3 space, because now the old system, the museums, got our attention And they come to us and they're like, okay, how does this work? So it's also a tool for us not to only reach people that can't afford, and it's $3 million, so we're tokenizing that in fractions. But what is happening then with the tokenized piece that I own? You know, is it going to be just, again, a sleeper cell in my wallet? Or what am I going to do with it? So if I'm actually selling something where I want people to make profit of it, it is my responsibility to make sure that this asset will add value, or at least me holding it, giving me something back. So again, it is our responsibility, a public masterpiece, to make sure these masterpieces are placed in museums, galleries, you know, get the attention, get the PR. So this is a dance between traditional marketing as well as making sure that things work on the blockchain and people are happy. And we are in the process right now speaking with the government in Abu Dhabi, the Ministry of Culture, to start really tokenizing everything that there is in arts. And some governments understand the value and understand that they can, you know, profit from it, not only from the financial side, but just the echo in the world of being the first ones doing this. It's a big opportunity. And it's a very exciting time for us, I think, to be alive. For myself, time is moving so fast. The technology is evolving daily. I mean, my partner Kamran comes with me every 2 days with something new we could do on the platform and add and do. So yeah, I can totally see that with what we're doing, we're shaping the base, the ground for amazing other projects and other people and other industries to come and become a part of it.
Amazing, thank you. I think we're out of time. Thank you very much. Some great thoughts on real-world assets, on IPs and real-world assets. I believe it's one of the fastest growing class in crypto and DeFi, and it definitely has future and potential. So thank you very much. Let's give them a warm round of applause.
Thank you.